Welcome to part 2 of shooting my Otter Creek Infinity on a Surefire mount and trying to figure out what the exact cause of the accuracy issues that I've been having, where that's coming from. As you can see, I have a Surefire 4-prong mount on there, which I talked about previously wanting to swap to see if maybe that kind of held the suppressor more securely on there, stabilized it, whatever, and fixed the accuracy issues. So we'll see about that. I'm just going to shoot my white oak rifle today just because ammo's expensive, and I felt like with the other two guns I wasn't getting as clear results. This gun is the most precise. It's got the most precise optic on it. It's going to have the most obvious and clear differences between the different groups, between suppressor and not suppressor, if there is an issue, right? So I'm not made of money. Ammo's like $1 a round. Shit adds up real quick. So I'm just shooting this rifle today. That actually reminds me, hey, could I get 20 bucks? This ammo's really fucking expensive.
Not if you want to keep your spleen.
Didn't think so. All right, just gonna shoot no suppressor first, establish a baseline just with the flash hider to make sure that there's, not some weird issue. I torqued it properly. It's not perfectly timed on there. I'm not planning on leaving it on there forever, so I wasn't worrying about timing it correctly, but it is torqued properly, so it shouldn't be causing any issues with the crown or anything like that, or making the muzzle tight. I know if you over torque the muzzle devices, that can happen. I also did check it with the suppressor on with an alignment rod. It's good to go. There's not going to be baffle strikes, so we should be good. So let's get into the shooting the groups. I'm going to do the same thing, 3 5-round groups, and we'll see where we go from there. So already after the first group, one thing I've noticed is the flash hider tines ringing after each shot, which is why I didn't have a 4-prong in the first place, and why I went with the A2s, because they don't do that. I know there's other closed tine Surefire devices, but yeah, that's pretty fucking annoying. Let's shoot a second group. That's the second group down. I'm not trying to shoot these groups really fast because I don't want to heat the gun up too much, but I also don't want it to be a complete cold bore shot. I did take a couple of shots to warm the gun up and kind of confirm my point of impact and things like that. Let's shoot a third group. All right, that's the third group finished. I'm gonna go down and take a look at it just to, see how I did, and then I'll come back, throw the suppressor on the gun, and shoot some more. All right, now I'm going to shoot groups with the suppressor on, see how that goes, and we can compare them. All right, that's one group down. All right, third group with the Otter Creek Infinity on the Surefire 4-prong. All right, nice, beautiful, sunny spring day out here today. Gonna do my final testing with the Otter Creek Labs Infinity. I have a direct thread mount that I got now. So, gonna shoot 3 groups, 5 rounds each, with no muzzle device at all, just the bare threads, and then gonna direct thread the suppressor on there and shoot 3 more groups of 5 rounds, and then bring it all together in a little recap at the end. Second group unsuppressed, no muzzle device. Third group unsuppressed, no muzzle device. All right, that concludes the unsuppressed groups. Now I'm going to throw the suppressor on there, direct threading it, and shoot some more. All right, now I have the Otter Creek Infinity direct threaded onto my white oak, and we're going to shoot our 3 5-round groups. All right, group 2 with the Otter Creek direct threaded onto the white oak upper. All right, third group with the Otter Creek direct threaded. Pretty sure all those shots were connecting. Like they're all one hole, one large hole, but they're all one hole. Now that I went out and shot my rifle with the 4-prong on it and with a direct thread suppressor mount, let's look at the results. So when I shot the gun with no suppressor and the 4-prong flash hider on it from Surefire, I got a 0.9 inch average group size out of my 3 groups. You can see the 3 group sizes right there. And then ignore this. This is some other ammo. Don't worry about that. And then when I put the suppressor on with the Surefire hub mount on the Otter Creek Infinity and shot it on the Surefire 4-prong, I shot an average group size of 0.82. So similar group size, actually slightly better, slightly more consistent, which is interesting. But I didn't see that massive opening up of the group size that I did using the Surefire A2 flash hider with the Infinity and the Surefire hub mount. So I think that's pretty interesting, and I think it goes back to what I was kind of hypothesizing, that somehow the Surefire 4-prong holds the mount on there more securely, like it makes it like not wobble back and forth as much. I think it's longer than the Surefire A2, and I'll put in some video clips showing kind of the difference in how it sits in the hub mount. Also, interestingly, the Surefire 4-prong is slightly tapered on the sides versus the A2 flash hider. To be similar to an actual A2 flash hider, it has straight walls on the sides. So my hypothesis is that the inside of the Surefire hub mount is slightly tapered inward, and the Surefire 4-prong is also tapered, so there's more contact surface area basically, versus the Surefire A2 just is straight, so there's only one ring of contact surface, if that makes sense. If you're a mechanically inclined person, you probably understand what I'm saying. If not, maybe it's gibberish, I don't know. So when it comes to shooting the Otter Creek on a direct thread mount, I went out a different day and shot it just with no muzzle device, as you probably saw, and then shot it with the direct threaded Otter Creek Infinity on the White Oak gun. I shot really poorly on my first opening groups shooting with no muzzle device on the gun. I actually ended up taking a pause a little bit and kind of getting my head straight, because I was not shooting well, and I could tell even without looking at the group sizes, and going down range, I could tell I just wasn't shooting well. So I took a few minutes, kind of chilled out, and then went back to it, and then direct threaded the Otter Creek on and shot these groups. So my no muzzle device groups were 1.1 inches average, and then my suppressor groups were 0.61 inches. Now, I think this is a little smaller than maybe it should be, because if you notice, this last group over here is 0.32 inches. That's 5 rounds right there. They're almost all touching. This one right here is not quite touching. I think that group's an anomaly. Okay, I don't think that a gas gun shooting factory ammunition is actually capable of shooting that. Like, obviously it is capable of shooting that if you get the 5 perfect rounds, but it's not actually capable of consistently shooting that. I think that was an anomaly. It's just lucky, lucky rounds in terms of like the standard deviation probably of the velocity, something like that. It's bound to happen. So I think that threw the average a little bit low, but even these other 2 groups are pretty good, and probably would have resulted in some kind of an average like 0.8 inches, something like that, which is pretty consistent with what we've seen. Kind of 0.8, 0.9 inches, 0.7 inches seems to be kind of where this gun wants to shoot with this ammunition. Interesting date, but I think it clearly shows that the suppressor itself does not make the gun less accurate. In fact, if anything, the rifle clearly shoots better with the suppressor on it, both from this and the 4-prong groups are slightly better as well with the suppressor on. which actually kind of tracks with what I have heard previously, is that suppressors can actually slightly increase the accuracy of your gun, which is why I started all this testing in the first place, because my suppressors seem to be making my gun worse, which was I'd never heard of before. So it's kind of what kicked this all off. So I think going forward, I'm going to avoid the Surefire ecosystem just because clearly there are some possible accuracy issues. I think you're fine, again, if you are using an actual Surefire suppressor, like a Surefire RC2. And I think using kind of the more original Surefire muzzle devices like the 4-prongs and stuff, ones that have been around for a very long time and were kind of like part of the original design of that whole system, I think you're fine with that. But the whole like mix and match, putting random suppressors on a hub mount and using different muzzle devices and stuff, I don't know. Clearly there's some kind of issue there where there can be a bad interaction, and I don't want to risk that. I don't want to spend the money on that. I know going forward that I'm just going to take my Otter Creek Infinity and direct thread it right onto my LMGL from Red Right Hand and go from there, because that's kind of what I got that suppressor for anyway, was to take high rates of fire and a lot of heat and stuff like that. At the end of the day, this is all very frustrating to me because I originally bought the Otter Creek Infinity to be a do-it-all suppressor and to be able to mount on multiple guns, but I've had to swap out hub devices twice now and 3 sets of muzzle devices a couple of times now, and I've wasted a lot of expensive match ammo trying to figure out what the hell's going on with my guns. And I also swapped out other parts like optics mounts and stuff that I thought might be the issue. And at this point, it didn't actually end up saving me money. I could have just bought 3 suppressors and direct threaded them on 3 different guns and not worried about the whole quick detach thing. Lesson learned. Hopefully this helps somebody avoid doing that in the future, and ironically helps you save money by buying more than one suppressor. I don't know. Hopefully you at least all found this interesting, and I look forward to doing more videos in the future that are kind of more analytical like this.